Welcome to the Leader's Edge, where we celebrate leadership and shine a light on the visionary leaders that are shaping our future. Hi, I'm HR Huntsman, founder of Leader's Edge, creator of the Leader's Edge Performance Engine and Leader's Edge University. I am thrilled to bring you stories from leaders who are making a difference around the world. In each episode, we champion the innovative strategies, courageous decisions, and inspiring journeys of those who lead with purpose and passion. So, whether you're looking to refine your leadership skills or, my friend, you simply want to be inspired, you are in the right place. I'm excited in this episode to introduce you to Chris Greco. Chris is an executive performance coach. He's a CEO with multiple successful exits, an award winning author, keynote speaker, and triathlete. He's led eight, no less than eight, go to market transformations across mobile tech, telecom, cybersecurity, food retail. Those include two turnarounds and six go to market initiatives that ignited profitable growth or retention. He is a lifelong believer in resiliency and the potential of human beings. He's the author of Eight Steps to Overcoming Adversity, an award winning story of suffering and perseverance. I can't wait for you to listen to this guy. Get ready to learn from my friend, Chris Greco. Chris, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time, my friend.
Yeah, great to be here, HR.
Thank you, my brother. Okay, I just want to jump right into this. You're an author, you're a speaker, CEO, leader, triathlete, but a quote of yours that jumps out to me is self-doubt is expensive. Talk to us about that.
Thanks for having me. First of all, I think you run a great podcast. Self-doubt it governs it. It's a governor on our abilities. If we're not, the more challenges and setbacks that we have that we are unable to overcome, that's what drives the doubt. And
Yeah.
then you start building this mindset for every challenge you have that I'm not sure if I can get past this. And you can. It just sometimes it takes an extra effort. Sometimes it takes more time, but every setback is your setup for a comeback.
Okay.
And I really believe that self-doubt, it really limits our abilities and the potentials that we have as humans. I
How
mean,
have,
think about it. Think about it. As human beings,
yeah,
I'll say one other thing.
there you go.
There is no one like you that has come before you, and there is no one like you that will come after you. So you have a unique opportunity to really make a difference and reach potential that God has expected of you.
Yeah. Every high performing leader I know, myself included, deals with imposter syndrome in one way or another. I imagine you do as well. How do you fight through it? If we all wrestle with self-doubt, give us some keys and clues from your own experiences. How do you particularly fight through those things?
Yeah, it's mindset. If you look at, my book, Eight Steps to Overcoming Adversity, one of the steps in there is convince yourself that you can learn and do almost anything. We have the ability, going back to the human thing, our potential. We have an immense ability to learn. If we really believe, if we have a growth mindset, you
Okay.
have ability to learn. So taking on new challenges, yeah, imposter syndrome is temporary in my view. We all have to learn. If we really want to learn, we'll put forth the effort. But when I became CEO almost 5 years ago, first time, sure, I had to learn a lot going through it. But even the next role that I have as a CEO, it'll be a whole nother set of challenges. So you can call it, imposter. In my view, it's all about growth.
So your new book, Eight Steps to Overcoming Adversity. Let's talk about that for a second. What drove you to write that book?
My kids, I simply wanted to have something to leave for my two kids. Talked to for some quiet time with my wife, and it really happened. I've had two permanent life-changing events. I lost my dad when I was 15 years old.
Okay.
He from diagnosis to death was 8 months.
Wow.
My brother was 11, my sister was 4, and then my best friend and business partner. I was on the cusp, about a month away from resigning from a really good corporate job that I had to go join my best friend who is on his second startup. And I turned him down the first time. But this one was awesome. And about a month before I was going to resign, he died in a car accident. And
Goodness
his wife
gracious.
asked me to give it the eulogy. And I remember walking back after giving the eulogy, singing his praises. I looked at my wife, said, I said, "Hun, I gotta write this book."
Okay.
And 5 to 7 a.m., 3, 4 mornings a week for 2 years, I just sat down, put pen to paper, and it's a process. But it's very, yeah, but it's done so much for me as a leader. I'm glad that my kids will have something to read when they're about me and overcoming adversity when they're ready. Publishing a book is no small feat, and I respect any author out there that has published a book.
For sure. I have a couple more questions along those lines. Why overcoming adversity? Why not like becoming a champion or winning at life? Or why specifically did you pick overcoming adversity as the deal?
Yeah, I'm not. I would say that I'm not. Maybe I'm not that great at picking book titles. I have a couple signature talks that I do, and actually, the talk on the book is entitled "The Adversity Advantage."
Okay.
That could have been the title of the book, but they say that your second book is always born out of the ashes of your first. The first, it's just like the first time when you do something. And I wrote the book. I didn't use AI. I partnered with a writer later once I had most of it written that added structure and added some helped me think about the content. But I think that I was inspired by Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Okay.
I'm like, look, it's just as simple. You have an adverse situation. There's 3 types of adversity we all have in life. There's the everyday struggle, there's a temporary setback, and there's a permanent life-changing event. And this book addresses all three, I mean, all 3 of those. 8 steps to overcoming adversity is what it is, and we'll see what follows maybe in a year or two.
No, I love the title. I love that you went that route rather than the winning at life or some of that maybe overly
I
positive.
wanted to be specific, and
Yeah.
I did not write. Look, I did not write it to become an Amazon bestseller. It did win an award in 2022, which in self-help and the inspirational category for the Maxi Awards. I'll let your listeners kind of Google that. It's a pretty prestigious award.
Yeah.
I'm really humbled that it achieved that. But I wrote it for my kids, and I'm gonna stick to that. Maybe the next one will be more forward. Maybe have a different type of purpose. But
Sure.
8 steps to overcoming adversity. It is.
Love it. What did you learn from writing? I've written a couple books.
Yeah, I saw that.
They're absolutely a labor of love for sure.
Yeah,
What did you learn about yourself as you're writing this book?
that I still have a lot. I still have a lot to do, and I
Okay.
have a lot to learn. Most importantly, I have a lot to give. My mentor told me, he says, "Look, Chris, you want to get far in life, then give until it hurts." Writing that book hurt. There are days where I'm like, you got us up at 4:30, just getting the coffee and then sitting down.
Yeah.
We're on vacation, and I'm like, doesn't matter. We're on vacation for 2 weeks. Where's the local Starbucks? Are they open at 6 a.m.? Great, I'm there. And so if you really, so it taught me a lot about discipline, and it taught me a lot about consistency.
Very good.
That's you got to commit, and then you have to be consistent if you want to finish whatever you commit to. And I think that the non-negotiable I has, no matter what I was doing, whether it was vacation, whether I had a 6 a.m. flight, I was working on the book. And even if it was like sometimes going for 15, 20 minutes just staring at the screen, I got a block here. And well, maybe just working through that or just then closing the intent of 3, 4 mornings a week writing, I think made all the difference and taught me about discipline.
You say you primarily wrote this for your 2 kids. What
Yeah.
legacy would you like to leave to them when you and I are gone and we've had an impact? What do you want your kids to say about you?
That dad loved his family, that he put them first, and he never let a setback beat him, and he relied on his faith in God and the people around him to overcome adversity. And I would say if I can do it, and my kids are starting out life at a different, I don't know how to frame this, level than I did. I didn't really have much financial security when I was a kid. They very much do, but they're good kids. They're resilient. They work hard, and I think the opportunity for us as parents is to always be teaching and helping them grow and investing in them.
Very good. Who invested in you? Who are the biggest influencers in your life, the role models in your life?
There's God, how that list is long and distinguished.
That's good.
There were the five men and women that surrounded me after my father passed: Marty Kaplan, Stanley Dislowski, Connie Zimmett, Bob Carl, and others. There's the my business mentor, Tasser Meliotis. I lean on him. He is one of he's the best leader that I know.
Wow.
Best leader that I know. Always caring, always giving, and people just want to follow him.
Yeah.
Not because they have to, but because they want to. So I learned much from him about giving and
Okay.
putting your people first. This is a guy that whenever if you went to a conference room, the things that stick with you, where you would sit down, and if it was like a one-on-one meeting, he was not sitting across the table from you. He was coming around and sitting right next to you to have that conversation.
Mm.
Those things matter.
Yeah.
Remember, I flew into the headquarters office because I built a second office for the company in Kansas City. He always made time for, if I was there like 2, 3 nights, at least one night, he would take me to dinner, almost without fail. This is a family man.
Yeah.
He means a lot to me, and he's been a big influence in my life. And he's like a big brother CEO to me.
We study leadership for a living. I'm fascinated by the impact of leaders. I've talked to leaders around the world, from Hudson to Masai Mara to boardrooms here in the States. And
Yeah.
I'm curious, from your perspective, what common threads are there? You work with all these high performing leaders, you're a performance coach, you've been a CEO, you're a high performer yourself. What are some of the common threads that you see in these great leaders across industry, maybe even across generations?
They are core value led.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So they abide, like great companies are effective in developing core values that rally the people.
Good.
And it gets easy for a leadership team to behave when they have core values, right? And so I would say great leaders establish those core values. Great leaders are also have a growth mindset. Um, and they're willing to make change. I'm convinced that 80% of leaders talk about change, 20% actually do them. And that includes when you got to make changes on your leadership team, when you got to
Yeah.
change strategy, you have to not necessarily for a large corporation, not necessarily pivot hard, but somewhat pivot to reach the goal or vision that you set forth. And I think that great leaders have their core value led, and they have a growth mindset, and they're relentless about finding ways to grow, even sometimes when the external environment, there's just too many forces preventing growth. But for me, I am a growth leader. I cannot come into a company and accept low double digit growth or high single digit growth that
Right.
some mature companies are okay with. I
Yeah.
just think there's great opportunity to really look at a business and say, can we grow not necessarily faster, but better than we are today? So core values and growth mindset.
I love it. I wrote those down for my notes. How do you, I always like to learn from leaders, how do you maintain a good cadence where you don't get burned out? Like, how do you have sustained excellence over time rather than like trying
Yeah.
to sprint through a marathon, right? How do you build a good cadence that keeps you such a high octane dude?
You got to learn what exhaustion looks like.
Okay.
I've been guilty of pushing my team hard enough where they're exhausted.
Yeah.
So great leaders don't exhaust their teams; they inspire their teams. Right?
Well,
That's a big trade-off. And look, it all depends on the type of company you're running. If it's early stage, is a different type of cadence. Growth and sales and cash preservation is everything. If you're more mature, it's really focusing deeply on your strategy and your progress against that big vision that can have a major impact because of the size of the company.
yeah.
So I think that when you're talking about businesses are about people, leaders should not be exhausting their teams. And I think that the way you prevent that is you got to get uncomfortably close to your leadership team. And
Okay.
what I mean uncomfortable is that not uncomfortable for them, uncomfortable for you as a leader, where you might not be used to understanding more about people on your team outside of the workplace, their families, maybe some of the struggles they're going through. And believe it or not, people will share that with you.
Yeah, sure.
When I was recruiting I reset almost the entire leadership team when I took over Storewise almost 5 years ago. The company was headed towards bankruptcy, and we just needed we needed change. And one of the biggest questions I always ask is, tell me a time when you had to overcome some level of professional or personal adversity. And adversity can tell you a lot about a person.
For sure.
And they tell you those stories, and you understand what they had to overcome, and it really matters. And I think that's part of the reason why, those leaders that really invest in their people, understand their story, are the ones that get them to operate inspired versus exhausted.
So a poll came out just a couple months ago that I refer to all the time. It said 77% of Gen Y, so millennials, Gen Y and Gen Z, are severely to moderately isolated. They feel severely to moderately isolated, which is ironic given the cell phones we have that are umbilical cords to social
Yeah.
media. And we preach everywhere. That's an opportunity for smart leaders to connect, to help people feel seen, heard, and valued. But what would you say, Chris, to the leader who says, listen, we don't got time for all that touchy feely stuff. We got a business to run. We got widgets to make, all that stuff. Just suck it up and do your job. What do you say to that leader?
I would say there is a time and a for place. Look, guys, I hear you, we gotta press forward. But culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah.
And I think that the leader that operates with understanding that their culture is everything is the one that's going to succeed and inspire their team and push them past that setback. This 85%, I read a statistic that 85% of the world's workforce is somewhere between disinterested or disengaged in their job.
Yeah.
Now, remote work, I think, impacts that. I think that RTO I think it's a good thing. Your listeners may or may maybe not for every company, but I would say for most. We spend 2,000 plus hours a year in our work.
Right.
It should really drive two things: a sense of fulfillment and growth.
Yeah.
Fulfillment and growth. And you want to enjoy the people that you're working with. So it's just hard to do if we're always over like this, right? That interaction, I'm going to date myself, that water cooler talk, it matters. That's how you get to know people. So I think that disengagement, disinterest is partly driven by remote work, but also companies struggling to really, really go to a deeper level, getting uncomfortably close with their teams. And the other thing they're not doing, some companies, that a vision shouldn't only unite, it should divide.
Tell me more about that.
When you're setting your course as a company and you get feedback, I've done this where I've gotten feedback from the key people on my team, and we said, okay, here's the direction we're going. There is no way, especially in larger companies, that 100% of their people are going to be on board. And that's an opportunity, right? Because the reason why companies become dysfunctional is that you have people internally who are actively working against the vision of the company. And leaders have to set forth their vision, unapologetic about it. And I have part of the thing I do as an executive performance coach is that I walk companies through the process to establish core values, which is the foundation to proclamating the company vision. And I remember when I did it, I've done it twice as CEO and twice as head of revenue, where I remember we got feedback from the teams. It was an analog exercise where they wrote answers to two important questions about the company. And when I was writing the core values and the vision on the whiteboard, I could almost turn back and I can see the people who are like leaning forward. And there are people who are like, yeah, I don't know, that might not be for me.
Gotcha.
And you've got to read that as a leader. And I remember I went to my VP of Ops and said, hey, I saw John's body language when we wrote that. Is he in or is he out? And this is like a key executive, legacy executive. So a good vision unites and divides.
Okay.
I think that the whole kumbaya that everybody's on board. No, some certain people are not going to be on board, especially if it's a change in direction.
Very good. Let's talk for a second about that connection piece. I'm fascinated by that. I'm seeing more and more the younger generations, they want a place that is it's meaningful. They want work that's meaningful. It's purposeful. They want to be connected to the community. They want to know that what they do matters. They're part of something larger. How would you advise CEOs and leaders to weave that purpose and meaning into the everyday workplace? How have you done it?
I've done several companies like, and it really doesn't matter. It's almost agnostic of whatever your product you're shipping or building. Think about it. Think about the importance of toilet paper during COVID.
Just-
Gold, right?
yeah,
So think about if you're Walmart or you're a grocery store, like, guys, do you understand how important you are right now to the community? Because they need this in addition to food, of course, other things.
sure.
It's almost, you can go if you have the right mindset and think of your work as like fulfilling, and you could almost look at almost any company that's worthwhile, and you can drive a lot of fulfillment, from it, regardless of the product. I would say it like at Location Labs, which is we scaled that company. We were single digit millions when I joined. And the leadership team was like one of the best I've worked with. And we had a $220 million exit. Uh,
Wow.
and that company actually launched a product at the same time as Apple's Find My Phone and Life 360, where we actually gave parents the ability to locate their kid's phone using a map. And that was important, right? We would get
Yeah,
stories of my son he was literally missing. He got lost in a park. He couldn't find his way out. And we were able to triangulate in a 2,000 foot radius on where he was. And we get
wow.
these emails, or my grandmother was in a car accident, and we were able to pinpoint her location. That I'm drawn to those types of companies that are actually
Sure.
shipping meaningful products like that. But you can really, with the right mindset, find fulfillment no matter where you are.
Good. I want to go back to your kids for a second. You mentioned something earlier that caught my attention because it's something that I really focus on. I'm teaching my son and daughter to focus on is I grew up pretty poor. I was called white trash and trailer trash. I grew up in trailer parks and I've worked my
In
way
what, in
out of
what part of the country?
New Mexico,
Albuquerque?
southern New Mexico, no, Alamogordo.
Okay. Wow.
So I grew up in that situation, poor. My dad died when I was really young, single mom, bunch of boys, and I've worked my way out of that. So my kids have a very different childhood than I had. Now they're adults now. And then my grandkids have
Oh.
way different childhood, just two
Yeah.
completely different experiences in life. But I realized that those hardships, that adversity that you talk about, is a big part of my success, is grit and resilience and fighting my way through that. And so my son and I talk about his son is oldest son is David.
Yeah.
How do we protect David from the softness and entitlement of our success? How have you tried to do that with your kids?
I was very, look, my kids haven't read my book, right? They're early teens. They will eventually. But I make it a point to share stories of how we grew up. And my wife didn't. My wife, she's the daughter of two Cuban immigrants.
Okay.
They lost everything in 1960 because the Castro regime basically seized my father-in-law's father's property, his
Wow.
his business. Imagine, I mean, think about 20-some-year-old kids in green garb walking onto a tobacco plant and saying this is now property of the government. Can you imagine that?
No.
And so my wife's grandfather put my father on a plane at the age of 14 by himself, and they didn't see each other
Wow.
for 2 years.
Wow.
That's coming. So
Yeah.
my kids are very acclimated
Okay.
to those stories, right? My in-laws have a very humble home, which I think is healthy. They share their stories, strong core values. And I think that both of my, and we don't, I don't think we're extravagant with vacations and gifts, and we volunteer. We go to church every Sunday, sometimes more than once a week.
Yeah,
So I think that my kids have that exposure, that even though they're like you, HR, your kids and your grandkids, they're growing up much different than you and I did.
for sure.
They're gonna be okay. I'll share this story with you. I was at a youth conference. So they needed like adult chaperones to this youth conference. It was in Steubenville in Missouri. There's about four of these across the country last summer. And you just saw how engaged the stories these kids about the future they want for themselves, right? And what they're going to do. And you see the media paint certain generation, the younger generation is like lazy, inept. And I just don't agree with that. And I came home to my wife and she said, "How was the conference?" I said, "Hun, the kids are going to be all right."
Nice. We try with David and younger brother Matthew, two grandsons. Nate, my son, we talk about creating artificial difficulties. So making sure they
I
have
like
chores.
that.
Yeah, we want to make sure they're hard workers and they have tenacity and grit. And so we have 40 acres out here. He's out here with me. He's only 3, but he's out here with me every single weekend, and we're chopping up wood and cutting
It's
down
important.
trees. Yeah, I want him to know that hard work is fundamental to life, and that's important to me. It's obviously important to you as well. Chris, final question. You're a highly successful person. You've built a great deal of success and wealth, and you invest in others. I want you to talk to that young man, that young lady who's getting out of college or trade school, and they're thinking about starting their first company, excuse me, as an entrepreneur. What's your number one piece of advice to that entrepreneur who's about to jump off a cliff and start a business or run a company? Speak some
Yeah.
wisdom to that young person.
So I'll frame it this way. Always go into something, especially when it's new, understanding that things always take longer and are harder than they initially seem,
Okay,
but never give up.
that's good.
And never give up, because if at that when somebody is that young and they believe in their hearts that's what they should do,
Yeah,
then no matter how many times it takes, how many failures, how many new things they have to learn, they should never give up. And I'm convinced that's sometimes that youth and experience is healthy in building a company, because these experts who speak to the naivety of maybe more experienced folks like you and I would say, "Oh, no way, we got to step away from this. It's the wrong thing because we know so much, right? We have the experience."
sure.
Sometimes that inexperience can really propel a company forward. And seek out people who have done what you're about to do, and then turn off the people who have never done what you're about to do.
That's great.
They are going to waste your time.
That is great advice.
They're going to waste your time. And I would offer, then go to your listeners and go to grecospeaks.com. I would offer with a free 30-minute coaching session if they have some ideas on if they're starting a business, or they're a CEO and they just want somebody to talk to. The role of the CEO is a very lonely place.
Yep.
So I'm happy to do that, because at the end of the day, small business is the backbone of America.
I absolutely believe that. The book is 8 Steps to Overcoming Adversity. The man is Chris Gecko. What was that
Greco
website?
with an
What's that?
R. Greco with an R.
Okay. I thought that's what I said. Sorry. Chris Greco and grecospeaks.com. Seek out this guy. Wisdom, tenacity, resilience. Appreciate your time, my friend. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, HR. You run a great interview.
I appreciate it. Thanks, brother. That's it for today's show. Thank you for joining us on The Leader's Edge. I hope today's conversation inspired you to lead with even greater purpose and passion. So here are my 3 big takeaways from my conversation with Chris. Number 1, self-doubt is expensive. That's a great quote that he dropped for us. Listen, we all deal with doubt. We all deal with imposter syndrome, but we can't let it paralyze us. That's when it becomes expensive. It costs us opportunity and it costs us success. So press through it and learn what you are capable of. Number 2, core value leadership. I asked him what's a common thread that he has seen in all the high performance leaders that he has worked with. And he said that they are led by and anchored in a set of core values, and all their big decisions come back to those sets of core values. Number 3, I love this quote. He said, "Don't exhaust, inspire." You see, high performers tend to run at a pretty fast pace. The wise ones don't run their teams into the ground. They inspire them to reach for a better version of themselves. So look around yourself. Look around at those you're leading. Are you exhausting them or inspiring them? Great question. All right. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. I'd love a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more leaders like you, and that's the entire purpose of this podcast, to inspire, elevate, and champion leaders. I believe that leaders change the world. Stay connected with us on social media for behind-the-scenes content, leadership insights, and updates on future episodes. Don't forget to check us out at yourleadersedge.com and follow us at Leaders Edge Podcasts on all major podcast platforms. So until next time, keep pushing your boundaries, keep leading at the edge. I'm HR Huntsman. We'll see you soon.